Welcome everybody. Hello to everybody that's joining us. It is great to see everybody, even though it is virtually. And as you can see, yeah, as with a lot of things we're doing things a little bit different. So we've taken Unlock online. For those of you that haven't been to one before, what we do is we bring together a guest panel to chat through a particular topic. Nice and relaxed environment. We normally do it of an evening where we've got a nice buffet, plenty of wine, and we catch up. So I'm really sorry that we can't do that this year. But I promise you we're in for a real treat this afternoon, because we've got a great panel that have agreed to join us. So we've split this Unlock session into 4 little mini sessions, and then we've got a little Q&A for about 10-15 minutes if we've got time at the end. And also, I'm going to ask you to stick around to the very end, because we have a goodie pack to give away. So for those that make it to the end, we've got 3 Christmas goodies, some chocolates, another set of chocolates, and a Google Mini. So we're going to have a little prize draw at the end. And for those that are still on the call, right at the end, we're going to have a little lucky dip, and we'll get those sent out to the winners. So let's introduce the panel. First, can I say thank you very much to the 3 guys that have joined us this afternoon. We have Lisa Worthington from Dorset Tea. We have Claire Flower from Bevy Holidays down in South Devon. And we have Sam McLaren from Dorset Council. Perhaps Lisa, can you just give us a little bit of an intro, please?
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to work at Dorset Tea since 2013. Really proud to work for such an amazing local brand, and sort of moved down from Dorset from London 15 years ago now. Had always loved the county. Previously I worked in ad agencies, marketing agencies up in London, and sort of did it for a massive life change. Never looked back. Feel, as I said before, feel so proud to work for this brand and work in the amazing county. And to have sort of, really enjoyed all the work that we've been doing through lockdown, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, that's me really. What more do you want to know?
You're a little bit sporty, if I remember.
Yeah, yes, I very much enjoy my sport. I'm a triathlete. I qualified for the GB age group team last year.
Oh.
So really massively proud of that. And I think that the county naturally lends itself to an amazing playground for whether you walk, whether you like walking, running, cycling. It's all there for us. We're very blessed with our natural sort of, I call it the natural playground. So yeah. And really delighted to be here today. So thanks for inviting me.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Claire, you might have an alternative thinking as to whether or not Devon is better than Dorset or the other way around. I'll leave you two to fight it out on that, but would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. Well, as you can see from my background picture, the blue sky is permanently there on the English Riviera. I don't know about in Dorset, but it's... So yeah, we're in Paignton, South Devon. We're a family-owned holiday park, and I can see there's a few holiday parks have just popped up on the participant list. So we offer a wide range of accommodation from luxury lodges to touring and camping and holiday caravans, plus we have our owner caravans too. We've got a wide range of facilities, swimming pools, entertainment, restaurants. So there's quite a few different angles to think about when you're talking digital. And myself, I look after the marketing angle, and along with my lovely marketing team.
Thank you very much. Lovely job. And then we have Sam.
I'm sorry. I'm Sam McLaren. I work in the digital team in Dorset Council. I'm really passionate about all things digital and change, and I support and work a lot of the digital Dorset stuff about like the networks and like the recent festival that we ran. and I'm pro Dorset, so I think Claire's outnumbered.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, we'll have, no, we better not have a vote at the end, but yeah, thank you for that, Sam. That's great. Okay, let's start then. So tomorrow we come out of lockdown 2, and it's fair to say that, you know, this has been a pretty bumpy ride for a lot of businesses, a lot of sectors, things like hospitality, particularly the events industry. And I know, you know, lots of people have been affected this personally as well. So, you know, it is very difficult times. You know, I know as a business that you know, we've had a few ups and downs along the way. The whole work from home, ensuring staff are well looked after, just, you know, as well as just trying to keep business ticking over. But I think what I've seen, it is also possible to be creative, to be innovative in these difficult times. I know, you know, I'm particularly proud of, as I would be, of my team here, who've stepped up. You know, we had a particularly busy set of challenges just as lockdown was announced, and then particularly with the holiday parks back in July time. And, you know, we've also launched a brand new app product to the marketplace. So I know that great things are possible. It's just a case of, you know, how you get to do them. So what I'd like to do over the next hour, or, you know, literally the next hour, is to ask our guests, our panelists, to share some of their experiences over the last 9 months. I can't believe it is 9 months since, you know, what happened when we entered the first lockdown in March. How did you guys adapt? Did you innovate? What changes have you seen in customer behavior? And how that has impacted on some of your services and the products that you sell. And then towards the sort of the back end of the session, look at some of the lessons that you guys have learned, how those are perhaps things that you thought about in lockdown 1 have then applied to lockdown 2. And then right at the end, you know, an optimistic look at 2021. Let's think about how, you know, business is going to look for you guys as we go into next year. And in particular, what part digital is going to play. So let's talk about we've kind of set the scene with this sort of section 1, which is when the first lockdown and the pandemic hit. So let's take you back to the start of lockdown. Back in March, Boris made the announcement. Can you talk us through how that impacted on you and your business? Lisa, perhaps we can start with you.
Yes, certainly. Well, it was such a shock that all of a sudden, you know, we were one day we were in the office, and next minute we were all at home, and we were all like on Zoom, and we were very lucky that the sort of at the beginning of the year, we had decided to put more focus on digital and more focus on e-commerce. So we'd put quite a lot of processes in place to actually sort of, you know, drive more revenue through that channel. So we had implemented all of those sort of new systems and email flows and email marketing, all that sort of stuff. And it really stood us in good stead to be ready for the e-commerce surge. So, you know, I'm so glad that we invested in digital right at the beginning and did that planning. So from a sort of systems and being practical, that was brilliant. But what we did as a brand, we suddenly went, well, you know, what is our place in this pandemic, and how are we going to respond to this? And we've got to be really sensitive. We've got to not be seen to be capitalizing, because tea is a product that people go to tea for, you know, to be consoled, to sort of feel better. And, you know, tea consumption did increase during lockdown, but we didn't want to capitalize on that too much, and we didn't want to be in people's faces so much. So we sat down and decided what our brand purpose would be. Yep. And how we would execute that across digital, because obviously the focus was going to be digital. because we couldn't do sampling, we couldn't do all the events, we couldn't actually touch our community. And we wrote our brand purpose, we put a plan around that, and then we just started getting really creative. And we just decided to, you know, it was about being creative, being more connected, but being sensitive. So that's very much how we approached it. And the more, and to be really, really authentic, I think Dorset Tea is a very authentic brand anyway. And how we use the digital platforms, we tried to be authentic. We tried, and we decided that our brand purpose, sorry, I got a phone going. We decided our brand purpose was to actually bring delight. So, you know, to elevate people through the misery and help through the misery through a, you know, drinking a cup of tea, but also through really nice creative content that got people involved. So that's very much how we approached it.
Yeah, and I like that, just the fact that you actually said, bring the delight back to what was a difficult time. At any point, did you have like a small crisis team that got together on a daily basis, or was it very much did you set a team up to kind of deal with this challenge early on?
Well, that's really interesting, because normally, you know, the brand team, the marketing team would all get together and we would, you know, very much decide our plans. But it really, what it did within the business, it opened up the challenge to everybody. So, you know, coming from an agency background, it would be normal for everybody in the agency to get involved in a brand brainstorm or a client brainstorm. But being client side, that very rarely happens. But actually, we opened it up to everybody. We opened it up to, like, you know, the customer services team, to the sales team, to operations, and anybody who felt that they could add value, because we were all going through this, like, you know, we all had an opinion and we all had a feeling about it. So everybody became involved in what the brand comms would be, and everybody contributed. So that was a massive shift. And as a result of that, we do definitely reach out to the wider business, because what's to say that somebody in operations or production hasn't got a really good idea about a piece of brand comms? So and it was very dynamic. It was, because I think at the same time we were trying to be very sort of, you know, planned about it, but at the same time nobody had been through this, so we were peddling a little bit and going, oh my god, will this work or will that work? But actually what we found is it didn't matter if we failed, because none of us had done this before. So if an idea worked, that was great, but if it didn't, it wasn't, you know, people weren't going to lambast us, because we were all going through this really difficult time. So actually it was a great opportunity to be a little bit more sort of experimental with content.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work, it didn't work. But if it worked, it really worked. And there's a couple of examples I can talk about later. So.
Right, thank you, Claire. And you know, having been involved with the holiday park sector and elements of tourism, seeing what happened to you guys, you know, almost decimated overnight with various government announcements. How did you guys cope?
Well, I have to admit, it was very stressful indeed, and quite a challenge. And not having knowledge of what was coming and where COVID going was very, very intense. You know, the minimal information, the short notice that you were given. But we had some fantastic support from our team. They all sort of pulled together. That they've become quite good at adapting. They're not phased by the last minute and the volume. You know, that's now become what I dare say the new normal for them, and it doesn't phase them anymore. We only had a small team working because we furloughed the majority of our staff, divvied up the work to cope with the volume of customers that we had to contact was quite colossal. But we got through it. Yeah.
I guess, you know, early on you would have had a lot of bookings that needed to be communicated in the right way.
We did, and we found that quite a challenge, because there's absolutely no way that we could contact each customer individually. So we were very much looking at how we could communicate to them on bulk, but also getting that personal contact across the tool. And we made a lot of use from our website and our social and our e-shots. We sent a lot of emails out. And very much made priority of which customers to contact first in terms of their upcoming arrival dates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, seeing what perhaps other parks, other brands. I mean, Lisa mentioned the whole idea about making sure that your brand purpose is clear. I know that there were some things in the marketplace where some companies weren't offering refunds, and the whole social media seemed to be kicking off around different things. So I guess challenges there as well.
Oh, huge. We were stalking what other people were doing on social media. We were calling up holiday parks just to find out what they were doing. What could we do? What couldn't we do? It was very difficult when we got advice from TOSs and so on. But it was a lot of it was about your confidence to hold your own, because you really didn't want to give out refunds. So how were you going to persuade your customers that the thing to do was to keep their money in holiday credit and have confidence in you? That was one of the big things that we looked at, was the wording of our messaging, to try and encourage more of that as possible, and to keep that refund word just that little bit smaller and a bit more hidden.
Yeah, I remember there was a little campaign: don't cancel, postpone.
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, Sam, let's come to you. I guess as a local consumer of council services, we see one part of what you guys do, but there must have been other things that the council was getting involved in when this was all kicking off first time.
So similar to what Lisa was saying. So when it first kicked off, it was kind of like a shock and comms, and then kind of transition people to working from home and who can work from home, and providing the tools for people to work from home and things like that. And with safety being the number one thing, so about people coming back into the office. So there's a lot of work around just kind of adoption of everyone using Teams, and any plans that are in place around how long it would take people to train up on using these sorts of tools, just kind of being thrown out the window and having to been done a lot quicker, because people needed to use them now to collaborate and get work done. There was a fantastic group that came together called Community Shield, which was council staff, councillors, communities and local businesses that came together to kind of steer problems and find some solutions for problems, and get them out there into the local community. So people were struggling. We had a digital skills hotline for anyone who was struggling, because for people that can in digital or are used to working from home or that sort of technology, it wasn't as easy as a transition. But for people that have no idea or don't have the necessary skills, it was just a complete shock to the system, and then that support was needed for people how to use things.
Yeah.
But then for me personally, I was all right, because luckily I had somewhere to work. I had the kind of spare room I could turn into an office, so I wasn't at the dining table like some people. And I haven't been to the office since. The only thing that's really changed is the messiness of my desk. Because in the office normally I'm fairly neat, but something about working from home is just post-it notes everywhere, which is essential for doing digital work.
Absolutely. Thank you for the input. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the section 2, which is all around business change, and in particular how customer behaviour might have changed. So it's clear that lockdown has had a profound effect on people, the way they live their lives. Just even going to the shop these days, it's a different way of doing things. Things like self-isolation, the economic uncertainty, the daily public health guidelines that we keep getting, the choice, the convenience that we now have with digital platforms. Those are just some of the things that are changing the way consumers behave. So I'd like to ask each one of you is just to give us an idea of how your customers have changed, and then how you've adapted to that change, and in particular how maybe digital has played a role in that. So Lisa, if we can just come back to you on that one. How have your customers changed over over lockdown?
Okay, so when we talk about customers in terms of our business, we talk that means people like our wholesalers or our, our multiple retailers. So, and then I can talk about consumers like people who drink our tea. In terms of how things have changed, because we have the wholesaler channel is massively important to Dorset Tea. So that was massively impacted by COVID in the hospitality industry shut down. And that's significantly impacted revenue for us because people aren't going to cafes, restaurants, hotels. And, that whole sort of Dorset experience through to, a lovely place you stay, to the beautiful tea that you drink had totally stopped. So, it massively impacted on that channel and that section of our customer base. In terms of, the multiple retailers, tea sales increased. It was more difficult to obviously get buyer meetings. Everything went online. So, we all just worked through it in that respect. And what we tried to do where people couldn't potentially, buy from, because we only have like semi-national distribution for Dorset Tea in terms of our Sunshine blend. Yeah. So the sort of core blend, and the Fruit and Herb is very much in independent retail. So we sort of got a van going and we did sort of like, boxes of tea that were delivered by the Dorset Tea branded van, which meant that, we got a better brand experience into the community. I'm really sorry if you can hear my dog whining in the background. Just one second, I'm just going to let him out. So that sort of caused us to do things differently and, getting out in the van and delivering things to people.
Yeah.
So that's from a customer perspective. Consumers changing their habits, I think they just became, more people spent time on social, people were more engaged with us, people were happy to join. We did some research online, we did some research groups online. Okay. Everyone was so used to just talking to strangers over VC. It didn't faze them. Normally we would go to a research company, pay a lot of money to have focus groups, but we actually organised for another brand that I work on called Tea India. We organised some focus groups over Zoom, and it was amazing. It was great to be able to talk to consumers direct. Yeah. So they would never have done that had this not have happened, and had they become so familiar with talking on VC.
Yeah.
So
actually, you've this whole experience has almost enabled you to get closer to your customers.
Absolutely.
A direct contact.
Yeah. Yeah. It's allowed us to be more authentic, or to, to actually demonstrate that we are a really, really authentic brand, and get closer to our community, definitely, and really understand our community and meet them face to face, like this, and ask them about our brands. It's been great. It's been fascinating.
Brilliant. Thank you.
From that perspective, and I'm very mindful of going, this has been a great experience, because as you said quite rightly at the beginning, it has been an absolute global catastrophe, and I don't want to underplay that. What I'm talking about is a very sort of specific topic, i.e. the digital aspect of it. So I want to just make it clear that I'm not going, oh, this has been amazing. So
no, thank you. Claire, can I come to you? How given that lockdown has kicked in, we've probably got a number of guests who are slightly unhappy that they've got to now reschedule their holiday plans. How have you seen a change in their behaviour over the last 9 months?
I think the one thing which has been absolutely wonderful is most of our customers, our regular customers in particular, they've been absolutely so supportive and understanding and very patient. That they have changed in terms of that they've not been able to speak to us quite so much, like a forced change, but because we just couldn't keep up with the volumes, and so we've been teaching them of how to what other channels that we've got, and encouraging them to use those and adapting to that. And one of the ones which we found really useful is live chat, because we can just switch that on and off as to how well we're staffed up. So a very, very handy tool, and it's been useful for some quick conversations, and we can set up a lot of hashtags, and so you can do very quick responses to them as well by quickly getting the gist of what they need to know and quickly doing a hashtag and replying. And so it was quite a time saver, really, using that as technology.
Yeah. What a great tool for almost dealing with that immediacy, I guess, that, you know, a lot of people's expectations these days is that comes with digital is that actually they want the answer now. They want a response now. So using something like live chat actually is a great way, as long as you can support it, is a great way to be able to deliver that kind of customer service, I guess.
I think it's been great for the speed of response, and I think a lot of people now are quite getting used to that speed of response, though, and it's something that I think will be ongoing in the future, and it's something that will be continuing into next year, definitely.
Yeah. And how do you find, just sort of, you know, from a resourcing point of view, is it a 24/7 live chat, or is it you know, we close at 9 o'clock?
During the first month of lockdown, it was probably 24/7. Yes,
Right.
for all of us. It was very crazy. We had quite a small team, but we could switch it on and off, and it was making sure that we used the different channels at the different times, because you know, the customers who do want to call you, we made sure that we were manning the phones at certain times and had certain people on to do that. So it was very much a time juggle.
Yeah, great, thank you, Sam. Let's how did some of the things sort of change from you in terms of customer behavior?
So from my team's perspective, kind of our users and customers can be internal or external. But one of the main things I would say is about kind of communication. And one thing that's changing now that people are at home or they're not going to be seeing people as much in person, there's been a real push of communication, of like updating, whether that's externally on social media and things like that, or through like internal posts and emails and things like that sort of thing. So that's really important. And I think letting people know, and I think that is something that's going to continue generally, is that kind of update and maintaining that communication.
Yeah.
One of the things as well, I think, is around working at pace and adapting at pace, and all this shift to kind of, you work from home now, or you have to use this now because of the situation, means that people adapted quickly, and it shows they have the capacity to adapt quickly, which means going forward that it might mean that things have a quicker pace, but then it also has brought forward the kind of support and digital skills, and making sure that you aren't leaving those people behind, and those are in your mind and in the forefront when you're making these decisions and when you're doing these things.
I think that's a really important point, Sam, because people who actually shied away from technology, they had to embrace it to survive. And I think that's just been such a brilliant thing, you know, grandparents just embracing technology and then maybe going online to do their shopping. It's really accelerated that real, you know, just like people just, you know, getting on board with digital. And it's been great.
Yeah.
Because it's been critical to survival, hasn't it, really?
Absolutely. I think, Sam, one question I think I would ask is there a particular software platform or channel that you guys focused on, particularly for that kind of short, regular update messaging?
I would say online, there's definitely been the shift from the comms team to kind of place like Facebook, internally and externally, because they've been doing a lot of updates on like all the when there's new information about the tiers or bins or anything that people would need to know. And then internally, they've also set up groups to kind of keep people in contact and get people talking to each other, because initially at the start of lockdown, it was everyone just works from home, and maybe you might have a more frequent check-in or like a catch up with your team or people, but it's become kind of more normal now having those frequently.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us on to the second half of the session, and this is thinking about your experiences coming out of lockdown 1, then going into lockdown 2, and you know, we, as Lisa said, you know, we all know that the last few months have not been easy, but I think there's also been certainly a time for newfound resilience. We've talked about adaptability for many businesses. So I'm keen to explore perhaps what are some of the key learning points that have come out of lockdown for you guys. What are the lessons that, perhaps have come out that you can take through and perhaps share with the guys on the webinar today. So back to you, Lisa.
I think the major learnings that we have learned during both lockdown is, well, I'd go back to the first lockdown because I think it was so different. I think everyone would agree it was so different this time round. Well, for us as a business, in the first lockdown, we just got really creative and really bold, and we put our fear to one side, the fear of failure to one side, and we collaborated as well. So, and I think in doing all those things, it made us more human, because there was that desire to be with people. So we started working with people, like we worked with the Dorset Knob Festival. We just built our, we've always been good at collaborating across all the brands I work on, but we just, we joined forces with Weldmar. We did online quizzes. We did the Dorset Knob Eating Festival online. We did Dorset Tea at 3, Phoebe and I make up the marketing team for 3 brands. And we were literally on Facebook Live at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, basically getting people doing, people who've been celebrating people who had been incredibly creative during lockdown, like families who've been locked in, creating amazing music, or, we just went for it. And as I said at the beginning, it allowed us to do that because nobody was judging us. Nobody was, we were just being ourselves and being authentic. So I would say the key learnings were, be authentic, collaborate where you can, and don't be frightened of failing, because what's the worst that's going to happen? It couldn't get any worse than COVID, let's face it, and actually have some fun. We really learned how to be creative, and I think, and show people, the people behind the brand, and just have fun, really. And get close to your community, really engage with your community through social. I know a lot of us go, oh my God, social media, it's taking over the world, but it just saved us, I think, through COVID, definitely, in terms of being able to connect with our consumers. But also it was a great, the other thing was, it was a great leveler, because every brand was in the same, well, I'm just talking about our tea industry, every brand was in the same boat, and everyone was being challenged in terms of what their comms could be. But, Twinings weren't putting their marketing team on Facebook Live, and they weren't, it was interesting how different brands sort of approached the sort of the pandemic. So
clearly I know you guys had a lot of fun, because I know I checked in on a couple of the Weldmar knob eating competitions that you ran, and so I mean, we had so much reach from that. We were across every BBC platform, a simple collaboration. We always support the Knob Festival, and someone in the office said, shall we do a virtual knob? We could do virtual knob eating, like a throwaway comment, and we went, well, let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's do it. And we did it in we organised the whole thing in 5-6 days. And it was that desire to go, we can do that. We can do that. We've never live streamed anything in our lives, but we'll work out how to do it. And, working with Weldmar, James at Weldmar was amazing. He was like, oh, we went to him and said, how do we do this? You're online all the time. And he was sharing his knowledge. So there was a lot of knowledge sharing as well, which was amazing. So, and people were very happy to help out and make things happen. Great. Brilliant. What a great story. Thank you. Claire, what's been the takeaway lessons for you guys with lockdown?
Technology, really. I think although we've always realised the importance of technology, it certainly was shoved at us that yes, we needed to be on top of it, and we've channeled a lot more resources into it. we were very lucky that we were already working with yourselves to create our app this winter. And we sort of had to ramp up the pace of that and make sure that that was ready for when we opened the park again. And because we realised it was going to be just this one massive, superb platform to channel everything through. And we did it, and it was amazing. So we had the activity bookings from there, the swimming pool bookings. We did the restaurant bookings through there. So it was a really, really useful tool. But one of the difficulties we had, the sudden realization, was we had to get our team on board. And a lot of our team, yes, some of them are very techy indeed, but some of them are simply not, and they've not me before, and it was a challenge, and to make sure that they were happy and comfortable and kept their morale up. So, for example, our restaurant team, they're great at their customer service. They don't usually use gadgets, and suddenly they had to learn how to use the online booking software. But also they had to have, they had customers asking them how to use it, and they didn't know how to use it themselves. They'd never booked a table online before, and so we had to do a lot of training, write up some how-to guides, tweak our wording on all the website, the app, and everything to make sure it was, it was easier to use and really simple to follow. So I'd say staff training was one of our bigger issues than actually getting the technology to work in the first place.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And Sam, are there some key lessons that you've come across from the last 9 months or so?
I think a lot of what Lisa was saying was I was agreeing with a lot of that around the fun aspect of it, and that kind of links up with some of the well-being and mental health stuff, especially with everyone being so isolated, and the kind of the taking chances and not putting up those barriers. And all of this sudden change kind of shows that sometimes maybe those barriers that people put up saying that something can't be done don't actually exist, and it can be done, and it just needs to be a willingness to make those, take those risks and make those changes. And in terms of the changes to the second one, I think the second one has been an easier transition, but in a harder way. So it didn't feel as sudden and we're back at it again as the first lockdown. It wasn't a shock, but then it also means that people are starting to get a bit drained and maybe lacking a bit of hope, and looking forward to kind of what can change and what can get better. And I would say one of the lessons learned is around well-being and mental health and checking up on people. And that's something that quite a lot of people would have already done beforehand, but I think now it's more of a focus when people are working and in people's minds, whether that's their team or their customers.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there with the whole kind of mental aspect the second time around. I think the adrenaline was, I think just personally, that for me, it was the adrenaline that took me through lockdown 1. And, then it was, okay, we've got a bit of a break now when we can all enjoy a bit of summer. And then lockdown 2 came, and it was, whoa, that was being sort of hit like being hit with a train. So yeah, difficult times, but great to hear that there's lessons coming out of that. I'm gonna actually we had a question earlier from Lara who asked if there's anything that you guys would have done without the restrictions of lockdown. So is there anything that you would have you may not have done without the restrictions that were in place from lockdown?
So can you say that again?
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any things that you may not have done without the restrictions of lockdown?
I think so. We ran a big Festival of the Future event, which we did all virtually, which is about kind of raising, as a phrase I like to use, which is digital in Dorset and Dorset in digital. It was about raising awareness of Dorset in the wider digital landscape around the UK. and around the world in some cases, and then also raising awareness of what digital can do in Dorset itself for businesses and communities. And we wouldn't have got anywhere near the amount of people and engagement if it wasn't done virtually through Teams and Zoom and places like on YouTube, because people from everywhere could access it, and it was quite easy just to jump in and watch a session, then jump back out again. Whereas if we did it in person, it would have been a very specific amount of people that would have come.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to get to a place where, maybe in the spring of next year when we've all had the vaccine, that actually there'll be almost a digital turn off and everybody will want to go back to face-to-face meetings and such? No?
Well, so I just think it's shown how little we need to travel, how, we don't need face-to-face meetings. We can do everything so efficiently and so much, and be kinder to the planet doing it virtually. And actually, a lot of people say, oh, well, you don't get those water cooler moments where you like share stories or have a laugh, or it sort of stifles creativity. I totally disagree, because I've got to a point now, I don't know where about you guys, but even being here now, I feel connected with this group. I feel like it's, a very healthy discussion that's going on. I don't feel like it's being restricted by the fact we're doing it virtually at all. It would be great to meet you, and it'd be great to do the things that you were talking about, David, like sharing a glass of wine. But that's a totally different thing, isn't it? We're talking about something really sort of important in a very efficient way. That's sort of nice to have at the side of it is a different thing. That's where you bond with people, and that can be done in a separate sort of format, I think. I don't think it stops the bonding. I don't think it stops the business. I actually think it's enhanced business. It's enhanced thinking. It's created a lot of speed around it. So,
as you said, there's now another choice. You don't have to jump in the car. You don't have to get on that train. There's now another choice to actually take part. And, it's amazing that there's people on the call as far as the Lake District, that actually, and Claire being on the panel from down in Payton, normally we wouldn't have been able to get you all in a room. So, the opportunities are definitely there.
I think there's certainly there's no going back from all this digitalisation, and people have really, really enjoyed it. But I am aware a few people have missed the face-to-face, particularly our customers. Still had to man the phones, and some of them they just can't get the hang of wanting to do the digital contact. So I think the value of face-to-face is really important. But I think there is definitely going to be a shift in the balance of what percent of our bookings and contact is online compared to what it was. It certainly has risen dramatically, and I think it won't drop that much, but it will drop a small bit is what we're presuming, and that's what we're gearing up to for next year.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast the other day, one by actually one of the directors of Tesco's, who they'd seen I think it was something like 600-fold increase in online orders literally overnight, and they don't see that stopping. And it's just incredible, that amount of change from one day to the next, as I say, moving to a new digital channel that wasn't necessarily there before. Well, was there before lockdown, but actually lockdown meant that people have now got to use that.
Yeah, well, it's accelerated by 5 years, hasn't it? The e-commerce channel, so. Yeah.
Sorry, Sam, you were going to say something?
I've been doing a piece of work at the moment I'm doing user research for, which involves asking these sort of questions around how people were working and how they were personally before lockdown and how they are after. And a lot of the responses seem to be either fully kind of, I love how I'm working now, or I love how it is now, I want to continue like this, or a kind of hybrid of the two where they can have a mix. And I think one of the important things, like Lisa was talking about, was the distinction between the kind of work focused and maybe the more social or doing things for like your well-being or for bonding and collaborating. And a lot of the stuff you could do virtually, and people are making that distinction where they say, oh, I'll work from home, or I'll do this from home. But then if I want to go and see people in my team, or if I want to have a more social sort of thing, I'll have to do that physically in person to get that kind of time.
Yeah. I know feedback from my team, you know, some of them have got you know, young children at school or childcare, and actually there's now a preference to, I can work late on into the evening, or I can, you know, do a Saturday morning and have that free time during the week. Well, if we're flexible enough to let that work, then, you know, everybody's happy. So
well, there is that whole, you know, I don't know whether you've seen on, I think it's Tom Goodwin, who's questioning the 9 to 5. You know, he made a very good point saying that the 9 to 5 was structured around factory working, you know, and actually, you know, Claire, you were saying that, you know, you turned into 24/7 live chat. That doesn't operate within a 9 to 5 sort of parameter, does it? You know, so actually, well, sorry. No, I know, but the thing is, it's like, why do we work 9 to 5? Like, none of us really do work 9 to 5. So why can't we say, right, well, we should have more flexibility in our hours of work? And, you know, just before, I think when during the second lockdown, during the first lockdown, somebody on LinkedIn said, well, you know, isn't it bizarre that the majority of us used to get on a train or used to like get crammed into a train carriage, like, you know, cattle going to the abattoir, to go and answer an email on a laptop that we could have quite easily done at home. Like, how random is that? And it literally sort of came down to the trust element. You know, can you be trusted to do that at home? And this has proven that we can all be trusted, and we've probably all been, you know, as efficient. So trusting people to work at home, hopefully would move to trusting people to be flexible in their working hours as well. Yeah. So I'd really be interested to see how, once we have the vaccination in process and once, you know, normality, whatever that normality is, comes back, how we all then work going forward. It's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to bring you on to the last section now, which is looking towards the future. So I know many of us might be looking forward to seeing the back of 2020, but really on a positive note, you know, there's been incredible changes. You know, as I say, we're now using things like Zoom and Teams and Slack and different channels to do different things. So there has been a lot of changes, particularly for businesses and also consumers. So let's just think about the future for the next sort of 10 minutes. What do you see business in 2021 looking like and beyond, and maybe how, you know, is there going to be a further change in consumer behavior that you think will come? And then I guess as an adjunct to that is what sort of digital and marketing trends that you will use in order to engage with those customers. So Lisa, if we can go to you, what do you think your businesses are going to look like next year and beyond?
Well, what it's demonstrated is there is appetite for what is seen as quite a regional brand. So Dorset Tea, you know, the majority of our customers live in Dorset, but then we've got semi-national distribution through Waitrose, and we've got a very successful e-commerce business because, you know, people have been buying all across the country during lockdown. Another brand I work on, Tea India, has absolutely accelerated in terms of online sales. And what it has proven is that we need to invest in that channel. You know, the sky is the limit in terms of growing the brand, moving Dorset out of its sort of regional, or the perception of it being a regional brand, and for Tea India to really play a massive part in the tea industry, or like in the tea category. So that, and also it's sort of, you know, we've been so reliant on multiple retailers as a tea brand and waiting for the buyer to accept new products or allow for our products to be on the shelves. And that has been our, you know, our real sort of lifeline. But actually, you know, people are buying more groceries online. So we're massively going to invest in that channel because it gives us the freedom to launch new products, try them out, see if they sell, rather than waiting for the buyer to go, yeah, that can go on, but that can't. So it gives us great freedom and opportunity.
Yeah.
And this year has taught us that there is appetite for our tea brands, and we can be much more intelligent about how we speak to people as well, because we can control the comms, we can do the segmentation, we can craft our comms around the specific target consumer we're looking to acquire, retain, or convert. We can't do that in the supermarket space because we don't have the big budgets, so we can't pay for in-store media, and we can't influence that purchasing decision at the tea aisle, whereas we can massively influence that through our segmentation and e-com. So really excited about next year. Yes, 2020 has been incredibly tough, and we have suffered as a business. However, it has taught us so much that we will take forward to next year.
Do you think there'll be new marketing channels that you might try? You guys on TikTok yet?
We are on TikTok, cool. And actually we are going to be doing our first TikTok campaign this week.
Excellent.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yorkshire Tea haven't posted yet on TikTok, so. But also the other thing, we as part of this year, we took all our packaging to 100% sustainable through, and because we had the time to, because we had the focus to do that, that's allowed us through all of COVID to actually get that project off the ground and in the stores. So we will then take that through to 2021.
Yeah.
And how we communicated that, we did we carried on our really creative, a different way of presenting it, and did it across Facebook, and did a film, did a short video. So we'll just be doing more and more of that.
And I did see this week there's some merchandise coming out as well.
So it's live.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's all live. So that's another. We basically created that shop internally. We launched our own shop because we do our web shop through a third party, but through the knowledge and collaboration, we've launched a web shop. So
brilliant.
So very excited for next year.
Good. Claire, obviously staycations are going to be big again next year, I guess. How do you see 2021 continuing for you?
Yeah, it's quite nervous about next year, but really excited. Mixed emotions, really. As to, we know we've learned a lot from this year, and the staycation trend is booming, and we're up on bookings for next year already, so that's really, really promising. But we're quite nervous about what offering we'll have, how many months we'll be open for, and whether we'll have limited facilities, and what adaptations we'll have to make, and making sure that the customer experience is top notch. And that was one of the challenges we had this year, and it's going to be a continuing challenge next year. And one of the things that we're going to be really working at is trying to optimize on-site spend. Yeah. This year we found that quite a challenge with the limited facilities and the capacity, and getting our customers to spend money on site has been difficult. Throwing them all outside in the cold has been one thing, and all the social distancing. So that's something that we're certainly going to be looking at, and we're going to try and use technology again to help with that. We used a click and collect service this year, going via the app, where they could order their food and come and collect it from the takeaway. And some of the businesses have been doing online ordering from their table in the restaurants and bars, which we haven't tackled yet, and that's something that we'd like to tackle next year. But I think one of the challenges is not perhaps getting the technology to do that, it's getting your systems in place in your bar and restaurants, and the processes to be able to meet the demand. If you order online to your table, you want it to arrive pretty quickly, and we've got to make sure that we do that, as well as then serving the customers who don't want to order online. And I think that's one of the difficulties that we're looking at, of how do we get that to work well, and and it's going to be interesting.
I guess just the the very, shall we say, simple task of placing an order, going through your till or EPOS system, and that arriving in the kitchen, so they know what they've got to cook or put together as a takeaway, sounds very simple, but actually there's some complex digital stuff going on in the background.
It was a bit of brain ache having to make sure that the printed ticket came out of the right printer, and then it went to the wrong printer, and again you had your chefs who aren't used to digital, so they were swearing at this printer, and I'm promising I will get it working right, and it was very difficult. So it did take time, but we did get there for the click and collect, so we should be able to get there for the table ordering service.
Yeah. And do you think there might be other kind of marketing approaches? I know, you've got the app. Email marketing is still a strong push for you. Are you still doing? We were talking earlier about print. I think before the call. Are you still investing in, or having to invest in print?
We've been doing it of a certain lesser degree because it's expensive in particular, but the customers do like a little bit of like a brochure, and we've always done a big mail drop at Christmas with our new brochure, and we're doing it again this year. It has actually already gone to print, so it can get to the mailing house in time to land on doorsteps between Christmas and New Year. And we're trying to monopolise on the fact that a lot of families will be together at Christmas. And hopefully it will encourage them to book, and they'll have time to look at our brochure and get planning, because I think they'll want to plan some more family time next year.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sam, what's 2021 looking like for you?
I think in terms of digital and my team, it'd be building on the pace that we've had from this year, whether that's adopting new pieces of software, or like using things like Teams or events, and being more open and transparent with communications, talking about what's going on, what's happening, what we're doing internally and externally. We've got lots of 44 or 45 AV1 avatars, which we've been putting in schools, which are these little avatars. They're about this big, that people can use, children use to look into the classroom when they're at home, if they need to be at home, and they can move around and look at the other people in their classroom, and look at the teacher, and look at the wall, or anything like that. So lots of those sort of technologies and things, as well as making things more efficient and better for the users overall.
Cool. That sounds really cool.
I think Emma was on here, but I'm not sure if she's still on here. But yeah, if on our Digital Dorset Twitter, there should be some stuff about those.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, we're coming to. In fact, we just hit 2:00, so we're bang on schedule for doing some questions. So if anybody would like to ask a question, we've got a Q&A box down the bottom of the screen. So if anybody wants to quickly type up a question in there, and we'll post those to the panel. Let's just see, we had a couple of questions earlier. Okay, I've got a question from Courtney. Courtney, I hope you're still on the call. What is the best way to reach the late adopters who have shifted to digital in 2020, who are not natively using the most obvious networking channels? So I guess this is a little bit around those that perhaps are on digital or a little bit averse to using digital, but how do we, perhaps still get at connecting with them? Does anybody want to try and give us an answer?
Is she talking about people who aren't like naturally predisposed to digital? Like, how do you get to those people?
I think it is, or those that perhaps have might be just used to using sort of, you know, the generic social tools, perhaps like Facebook, do a bit of FaceTime, do a bit of Twitter. But obviously there are so many more channels out there now for people to connect with.
I would say less about bringing them to the channels that you're using primarily, and more about bringing your business or yourself to the channels that they're using. Without knowing what channels she means, but if she does mean like Facebook or anything like that, then it's about pushing out to there as well as everywhere else that you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that we've been doing, is to make sure that we're on a broad number of platforms. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we've now done the live chats. So we've opened up all the different channels so that hopefully there's something for everyone.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. I had a question from Nick, actually. That's a question for me. Thanks, Nick. How has Key Digital found this year? You mentioned flexible working hours and any other changes, tools you continue with. I think we've definitely found it a challenging year. I think I've said to the team, look, we obviously need to fulfill, keep delivering services to our clients. But actually, I think we've moved to a flexible working arrangement where actually I don't really care how you do the work. It's more of a case of making sure it's done, but it's done obviously to the high standards that I want it to. Tool wise, I think Slack has been our savior. We decided to use Slack early on, and I think it's one that we'll continue to use. We've kind of had to use Zoom because that seemed to be the de rigueur channel that everybody else has used for video conferencing. But Slack has been our go-to channel. I don't know, has anybody else got ones that they want to share?
No, we've embraced Slack as well, just sharing knowledge across, the whole team, because we're quite a disparate team of 120 people across the whole of the UK. So it's the only way to sort of, share interesting content, store visit, photography, just general sort of good feeling stuff as well. So yeah, definitely Slack.
Yeah.
We've set up quite a few WhatsApp groups within the different departments. We found that very, very helpful. So you can just be speaking just to the team that you need to be speaking to. But we also created this year a Facebook page for our team. And it did go quite well at the beginning in lockdown. It was a great way of people keeping in touch, communicating, keeping their morale up. But it does seem to have dropped out a little bit at the moment. So whether we need to ramp that up again.
Yeah. Did you, have any of you used, have there been sort of particular, what I would call sort of digital champions within the team that have had to kind of keep things going? Or is it very much sort of, we've set these systems in place and then just allowed people to sort of crack on and use them?
I think it's been more about people have just cracked on and used them in our business,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the marketing team naturally sort of by default become a little, obviously, how we need to communicate, it's our thing. So
yeah. I've got another question here from Mark Watson. Do you think people are going to be expecting the out of hours contacts and weekends, etc.? Have we now set a new standard for expectation?
Yeah, I think they are. Sorry, Claire, if you want to.
Yeah, I was going to say certainly so, and it's making sure now that we keep on top of it. But I think what is key is to make sure you have everywhere what your contact times are, to make it clear, because there's nothing worse than trying to contact when you're not getting a reply. So I think in terms of when the phones are going to be on, when live chat's going to be on, I think it's much easier to if you have your messaging correct. But I say myself and the marketing team were quite known to be sat on the sofa at night just answering Facebook messages. And the unfortunate thing is, once you reply, they know you're there and they keep messaging.
And Claire, as annoying as it is, it's actually really quite nice to have a conversation with a consumer customer, isn't it? It can be quite just having that connection. I know it's quite irritating when it becomes sort of quite long and you're there for 3 hours one evening, but you know, it is nice to have that contact.
It is quite nice, and we've had a lot of happy responses. People are delighted that you answer them instantly, and I've really mastered the smiley face emoji.
Yes. Works wonders.
Excellent. Yeah, have you guys got anything else that kind of burning bit of insight that you want to share before we kind of wrap this up? Because I can see that we're coming up towards a finish time, but is there any sort of summing up that you would like to perhaps just mention at the end here, Lisa?
I think it's what I mentioned before. That's like, you know, it's probably going to be my mantra: be authentic, collaborate, and be bold. You know, that you know, and believe you can do it. Because I think one of the most important things that we sort of always referenced is never done this before, but that doesn't mean to say we can't do it. Let's just learn how to do it, learn how to do stuff, because I think, you know, nobody became a social media expert. No one was born a digital expert. You've learned it. You've committed time to learning it. So just embrace digital and learn it, just like any platform that you would feel probably more comfortable with. Maybe like just because something's printed doesn't mean to say it's easier than digital. It's just a different thing. So I would just say, jump in, embrace, enjoy.
Fantastic. Claire?
I think one of the big things of us is realizing the importance of communication with our customers. We've constantly communicated with them, making sure we're on it, making sure they hear it from us rather than reading it on social media first, and to be really clear with your messaging. But even more importantly than that, I think, is the communication with your team. We've made sure that we've regularly communicated to them via personal phone calls, like e-shots and things, once a week, just to make sure that they're you know, that they're keeping in touch and they're happy, especially during the long lockdown period when they're on furlough. And that is one of our worries now. We've got a lot of our team on either full furlough or part furlough, and it's making sure their morale is good, especially with the dark, dingy nights that we're having. So I think communication and support is going to be vital through this like winter period.
No, exactly. I heard a saying the other day, and that was furlough envy, about people either being on furlough that were envious of others, people being back in the office or in the workplace, and vice versa, those that were in the workplace and actually were envious of people on furlough. So yeah, interesting comments there. Thank you. Sam, any summing up points?
I would say about like said about earlier, but embracing the fun, embracing the pace, taking risks, and my inner service design coming out, I would say making sure that whatever you do, you're thinking about the users or the customers who it's for, and make sure it's understandable, because sometimes people can get in their own little bubbles, whether it's a team or an area, and to them it might be perfectly understandable, but to everyone else they might have no idea, or it might look a bit like a mess.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Yeah, I mean that is a great summing up from all three of you, so thank you very much for that. Well, I'm going to sort of try and draw this to a bit of a close. I've certainly learned a lot more about you guys, but also, you know, loved having you on the call. So thank you very much for taking part. There are a number of sort of key things that have come out about this sort of learning points: authenticity, collaboration, being bold, communication, messaging, not only to customers but also around internal teams. Taking risks seems to be the one that has been mentioned a number of times. Trying new things, not being afraid to fail, Collaboration, and I know that's something that, you know, the number of contacts that I've made just over lockdown has been phenomenal. So the whole collaboration side of things, I think, has been is definitely a key learning point. And Sam, your takeaway point at the end there about, you know, thinking about the user. Let's not forget that there's a user that is wanting to engage with us, that has a preference for either a device or a time that they want to contact us. So they need to be, you know, first and foremost at the front of our minds. So fantastic. Thank you so much for taking part.
Pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're going to do a quick prize draw. My lovely assistant Paul here is socially distanced. This is for some green and black organic chocolates. Okay, so out of the, it goes to Joe from South Edgwick Manor. So well done, Joe. We'll get that out to you. This is going to give the postman a little bit more of a challenge. A big box of dairy milk. Okay. So, oh, I was going off to Sarah Nichols down in North Devon. So one for you, Sarah. And the Google Mini.
Top prize.
Top prize. Top prize.
Can I have that?
It's going to Andrew Cressy from Parkview. So well done, Andrew, on that. Lovely job. So we'll get those sorted out and posted out in the next couple of days. I have promised the panelists, you need to keep an eye out for Mr. DHL, because he will be delivering something to you guys as a big thank you.
Thank you,
thanks.
David.
So thank you very much for taking the time out today. Just to say, everybody else, thank you for watching. Hope you've managed to get something out of the session. We'll see what the feedback's like after this, and we will definitely do another one.
Yeah.
We'll try and do another one after Christmas in the new year. But just to say, I hope everybody has a great Christmas. Take some time out, enjoy it. And
we can officially say that now it's December, can't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have the Christmas tree up in the office. We're allowed to. So yeah, have a lovely Christmas.
You too.
And take care, and we'll see you all soon. All right.
Thanks, David.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.